Today I'm swapping my usual birdwalk hat for my special pelagic hat.
If you've never heard the word pelagic before, don't worry. Until I became obsessed with birding, I hadn't heard it either. It's basically a cross between a boat trip and the most exciting birding adventure you've ever been on. I'll explain a bit more in just a moment. I had no idea what to expect when I was planning this trip, so in this video I'm going to give you an idea of what to expect if you want to go on a pelagic and how to prepare. I hope you'll enjoy coming along for the ride with me today.
I am so beyond excited today. I am going on my first pelagic birding trip. I've been wanting to do one of these for so long. Usually spots on these trips fill up super quickly, but I got really lucky and a couple of spots opened up on this trip today, so I snapped one up. Today I'm hoping to see a whole bunch of lifers. I've never really seen any seabirds aside from silver gulls and terns and things like that, so pretty much everything is going to be a lifer. I got here at about 5:40, which is way too early, but I wanted to be here and be nice and prepared. Speaking of preparation, I only found out I was going on this trip on the Thursday night, and ever since then I've been doing my best to get as prepared as possible.
I'll tell you more about the prep I did and what I'd do differently next time at the end of the video.
I think I'm ready to go.
This pelagic trip started out at Runaway Bay Marina on the Gold Coast. Of course, I saw a few bird species around the marina before we even took off. We all gathered at the jetty, and then the skipper of the boat we were on today took us down to the boat. We left at 6:30 a.m. on the dot, entering the seaway on the most beautiful morning. And then we just kept going for about an hour and a half without seeing many birds at all. This silver gull followed us for a little while. We saw the occasional speck on the horizon that some of the more experienced birders could ID, but for me, not so much. While we're on the trip out to our destination, let me tell you a little bit more about pelagics. The goal of a pelagic birding trip is to find seabirds, the birds you usually can't see from closer to the shore because they live so far out at sea. Seeing these birds out in the middle of the ocean is magical and thrilling and so much fun. That is, if you don't mind trying to ID extremely quick birds while you're inside a washing machine. Or at least that's what it felt like sometimes. The boat was rocking so much that I felt like I was going to tip over the side. And some of the birding pros on the boat said this one was nothing. Apparently, worse conditions can actually mean better birds. Anyway, back to the pelagic. At this point, we've just been heading out into the ocean for about an hour and a half. And all of a sudden, someone said, "We're here." And we stopped in the middle of the ocean with nothing around. I think at this point we had maybe one bird that was circling the boat. I was thinking, is this really it? Then the skipper started throwing stuff over the side of the boat. I think it was liver, but in the pelagic world, they call it burley. But still, I was thinking, how are the birds going to know that we're here? We're in the middle of nowhere. Well, within about 15 minutes, a couple of birds started showing up. The pros, not me that is, started calling out bird IDs, which was really exciting. Apparently, the birds smell the burley on the wind, and that's what draws them in. That's why worse conditions can sometimes mean better birds, because the wind carries the smell further. Before long, I think we had more than 60 birds flying around the boat. One of my favourite things about this day was watching the behaviour of the birds. They would circle around and over the boat, flying so quickly. When they spotted food floating on top of the water, they would land ever so briefly, which was when I would often try to snap a quick photo. then they would take off again, flapping their wings and pushing against the water with their webbed feet. The majority of the birds flying around the boat were these Providence Petrels. They were really striking birds, so sure of themselves in this harsh environment. My favourite bird of the day, this Wilson's Storm-Petrel, is a tiny bird. They look far too small against the size of the waves, like they should just be pulled under. Instead, they dance and hop over the waves so gracefully. The thing that surprised me most was that this whole day was mostly just sitting on the boat for hours in the middle of the ocean, not moving anywhere, and it was still so much fun. Every so often though, a new bird would show up and the call would go out. Like for this Tahiti Petrel. Apparently these birds don't usually tolerate waters below 24 degrees Celsius, and today we were a few degrees below that, about 22.4. One of my bird books even says that they're seen in summer in this area, but this pelagic was at the end of June, so everyone was very surprised to see them. This Black-bellied Storm-Petrel was also one that everyone was really happy to see. They look really similar to the Wilson's Storm-Petrel, but they're a tiny bit bigger and they have a white belly with a black streak. For me, I was happy to see everything, even this Crested Tern, which, if you're new to birding around this area, is a very common bird here. Another treat was seeing a whole lot of humpback whales pretty close to the boat. Eventually, after a few hours, we turned around and headed back to dry land. Some of the birds followed us on the way back, which was fun to watch. A dolphin even swam beside the boat for a few minutes. Altogether, it was an absolutely amazing day. It's really hard to express the thrill of seeing all these birds show up, having them fly all around the boat, and trying to take photos at the same time. It was another thrill getting home and seeing that a few of my photos had turned out okay. And this is a nice segue into preparation for the trip. One of the things I'm really happy I practiced beforehand was taking photos of birds in flight. My photos are nowhere near as good as some of the more experienced birders on the boat, but the fact that they didn't all look like this or this is because I had practiced beforehand on fast moving turns at Nudgee Beach. Next, you might be wondering about seasickness. As you can imagine, I had heard a lot of terrible stories about people getting awfully sick on pelagics. You can see why, right? I don't normally get seasick, but just in case, I bought myself some motion sickness tablets and took one on the morning of the pelagic. Luckily, I was okay, but it's something to consider if you're prone to seasickness. I also found that the times when I did feel a tiny bit green were mostly when I'd been looking in the viewfinder of my camera for a bit too long, so then I just took a break for a few minutes. It's been a week since I went on the pelagic, and those are some thoughts about preparation that I've had after I've had a bit of time to reflect. These are the thoughts I had immediately after I got off the boat. I'm sorry about the audio in these clips, my mic failed me again.
I just came back from my very first pelagic, and here are the things I did to prepare that I'm glad I did. First, I wore a good outfit. I have some waterproof boots on. They were really handy, and some comfy pants that did get bird poo on them, unfortunately. And then layers. I've got a t-shirt, a long sleeve shirt, and a jumper. I probably would add a waterproof layer over the top next time.
It's really important to be warm because there are a few hours where we were just sitting on the boat in the wind out in open ocean with not much to protect us from the chill. So I'm really glad I was warm.
Obviously, another really important thing is a good hat. I've got one with a wide brim and a drawstring so that it didn't blow off when it got really windy. Then in terms of other gear, I've obviously got my camera and spare batteries, super important. I also took a battery pack, like a separate battery pack, charge everything just in case I needed it. Sunscreen, snacks, binoculars, and then I've also got my DJI. I took all of this stuff in a backpack instead of my usual birding bag because I had a lot more than I usually would. If I had my time over again, I'd probably try to wear more pockets just because I had the DJI and a couple of little things that were a little bit tricky to hold while also trying to navigate the boat. I would probably also buy like one of those straps for my camera that goes around my chest. It was not too rough, but a little bit, and there were a few times where I was a little bit worried I was going to go over the side, camera in hand.
So just to be clear, the reason it would have been helpful not to have to hold my camera is that I could have held on to the rails on the boat without also needing to juggle my camera and my DJI and everything else.
I think that's all. It's been a really long day, and so I'm going to go home. I had a great time. I hope you did too. See you next time.
Oh, and P.S. I got 7 lifers on this trip. Unfortunately, I didn't get good photos or videos of all of them, but here they are. See you later.